Deadly Tarantula Girl coming to you from my private serpentarium tonight to bring you a Monocentropus balfouri, also known as a Socotra island blue baboon, I believe, rehouse. Now this animal is not one of mine. It belongs to a local aficionado who is animals you've seen me rehouse before, because this is a species that can take a special finesse. And I also had a recent request for a tank build on camera. So I'm going to go through and show you some of the things that can go into a basic setup. And let's just get started. Of course, you need a catch cup, tongs, nets, the animal, and the old enclosure, which you can see this one's pretty cramped in there. A larger enclosure. And then for this one, I am using cocoa fiber, ardesia leaves, and my tried and true vermiculite. I'll also need water, and that animal already has a hide, so I'll just transfer that. So the first thing you want to make sure and do is have holes in your container. I personally like to use a soldering gun because that way you wind up with very smooth holes because it burns and melts the plastic, and you don't wind up with sharp ends like you do if you're using a knife or something of that nature. So put holes in your enclosure, and then you can also put holes on the top of the lid and the lip. That way you can put something through there and lock it. So if you don't have a locking container, such as this, you can make a lock. This person who owns this animal, he wants a substrate made of vermiculite and cocoa fiber, about 60% vermiculite and about 40% cocoa fiber. And then he also wants me to recycle his hide and other decor and also add a few other things on top of that. Since I'm rehousing for someone else, that is what I'm going to do. He goes for a more naturalistic setup, which I like, but in my opinion, when you have numbers of animals, the most important thing is their safety and well-being, and naturalistic enclosures don't lend to quick and effective cleaning, and it tends to be harder to supervise your animals. And when you have hundreds of animals under your care, or sometimes 1,000, then they tend to get better care if they have basic enclosures. And in my experience, tarantulas do not care a whole lot about what their enclosure looks like. They simply care that they feel safe and secure, that they have the moisture and humidity and security that makes them feel comfortable. They need to be kept at the right temperatures, and that they do often want to hide. You want burrowing species to have a thicker substrate, which I know people often gripe about my substrate, but my rack actually is built to work as a hide. Only the front is open, and the reason that they're painted black is so they will be dark and basically work as a burrowing system for the animals. Now that I have a mixture of vermiculite and cocoa fiber, I've made sure it's very nice and wet. Now, you want to make sure that you don't have your enclosures too wet, but when you first add vermiculite, I actually do pour water into the substrate, because the beauty of vermiculite is that it kind of wicks the moisture and holds it and releases it over time. And if you live in the desert, that's very important to have a time-released substrate. However, if you start off and it's too dry, which if you're not careful, if you move it around, you'll realize that only the top layers were wet, which I've already turned this over and combed all through it. Unfortunately, what can occur if you are using vermiculite is that it will actually wick the moisture right out of your animal and dehydrate them. And I've seen it happen, and it's really awful. That is the danger of using vermiculite. However, for me, living in the desert, since I do know how to water an animal on vermiculite, that's what works best for me. Now that I have my base substrate, which, as you all know, Monocentropus construct their burrows however they like, so I'm not going to be too particular about how this goes. Here's the tip. If you have an animal that you really are not confident you can rehouse safely, what you can always do is simply place their old burrow inside of their new burrow, take the lid off and put the new lid on and let them come out. Now in this exact instance, because I put that deep substrate, that will not work. And obviously I know how to move an animal. Now watch it run away, that'd be hilarious. But anyway, for example, what you could do is take out the hide, and if the animal's in there, just transfer the whole thing. Just in the catch cup, transfer the whole thing over. Don't even disturb the animal. But I did want to reuse these materials, so I am going to go ahead and move it. First order of business is that I want to have all my materials on hand, my nets and things like that, my catch cup, and then I want to find out where the animal is, which I'm assuming that he or she is in her burrow under this log, and yes, cranky little spider. I'm going to move this over. Ooh, look, there was a molt in there. Check that out. I'm going to leave some of the webbing on there, but this had gotten a little messy, so I'm going to go ahead and take that out. And this animal has fairly recently molted, so I'm going to very, very gently I'm actually going to let him or her stay in this cup for a few minutes so I can examine this molt. Got crickets running all over the place. This is too beat up for me to see the gender of that animal. Here's where the fangs were, legs, cephalothorax, abdomen. This area is where the book lungs are. That's where I would look, but you can see it's all shriveled up. There's no way to determine the sex of this animal from that molt. If it had been fresher, then yes. So that's kind of a bummer, although I kind of think this one might be a girl. There's really no telling. So I'm just going to prop that up a little bit, and then I'm going to go ahead and put some fresh leaves. Now these leaves are really nice because they actually deter some bacterial growth, and they actually I should say that they don't deter bacterial growth, that they help facilitate balanced bacterial growth to where you don't wind up with a lot of mold and things like that. And it has a nice little eco balance, and I use those leaves in my poison dart frog enclosures. So I'm going to make sure I have my lid ready in case this guy spazzes out, and I'm just going to very gently and you can see he went right to his little home. He would have run over the ledge if I hadn't discouraged him by putting the catch cup there. I was simply using that to kind of close off that avenue, and it's sort of toward the top, so I'm going to encourage it to move down, and then this lid, as I said, does not have those snaps, so we did make sure that we have that hole there. With those pinholes, we can make sure that this lid locks closed, and voila! Monocentropus balfouri, Socotra Island Blue Baboon rehouse. I hope you liked seeing that wild rehousing and the custom tank building that goes on in behind the camera scenes. Hope you guys like this one. Let me know what you'd like to see me rehouse next, and I'll see you guys again soon.